Greetings to everyone. As we completed the book of Genesis, this is a brief summary of the entire book, helping listeners to understand its message in just a few minutes. The book of Genesis is the beginning of God's revelation to humanity, showing who God is, who we are, and how the relationship between God and mankind was broken and gradually restored. It opens with God as a sovereign creator who brings order out of nothing and declares his creation good. Humanity is created in His image with purpose, dignity, and authority. However, this perfect relationship is quickly disrupted by disobedience, as Adam and Eve choose their own will over God's command. This act introduces sin into the world, and with it comes the first and most important separation between God and humanity. This separation is not just spiritual, but also relational and emotional. Adam and Eve hide from God, showing fear replacing intimacy. Soon after, we see separation between humans themselves, as Cain kills Abel out of jealousy. Sin spreads rapidly, leading to violence, corruption, and moral decay. By the time of Noah, the earth is filled with wickedness, leading to God's judgment through the flood. Yet, even in judgment, God shows mercy by preserving Noah and his family, demonstrating that grace always accompanies justice. Another example of separation is seen in Tower of Babel, where human pride leads people to rebel against God's design. As a result, God confuses their language and scatters them across the earth. This event shows how pride separates people not only from God but also from one another. Thus, in the early chapters of Genesis, separation is a repeated theme. Separation caused by sin, pride, disobedience, and self centeredness. From Genesis 12 onwards, the focus shifts to restoration through God's covenant with Abraham. God calls Abraham out of his land, which itself is a form of separation from the familiar to the unknown. This separation, however, is purposeful, leading to blessing. God promises to make Abraham a great nation and to bless all nations through him. This introduces another major theme: God's plan to restore what was broken. The lives of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob reveal both faith and failure. Abraham shows great faith, but also moments of doubt. Isaac continues the promise quietly. Jacob's life is full of struggle, deception, and transformation. He experiences separation from his family due to his own actions. Yet God meets him and changes him. His name is changed to Israel, symbolizing a new identity. This teaches that transformation comes through encountering God, even in our brokenness. Family conflict is another recurring theme in Genesis. We see sibling rivalry between Cain and Abel, Isaac and Ishmael, Jacob and Esau, and Joseph and his brothers. These conflicts often lead to separation, physical and emotional. Jealousy, favoritism, and selfishness are common causes. The consequences include pain, division, and long term broken relationships. Yet, God continues to work through these imperfect situations to fulfill His purpose. The story of Joseph powerfully brings together many themes of Genesis. Joseph is separated from his family through betrayal and sold into slavery. He experiences injustice, false accusation, and imprisonment. Yet, God is with him through every stage. Eventually, Joseph rises to a position of power in Egypt. What was meant for evil by his brothers becomes a mean for saving many lives. This reveals one of the most important lessons of Genesis. God can turn human evil into good for his greater purpose. Reconciliation is also a key theme, especially towards the end of the book. Joseph forgives his brother, restoring the broken relationships. This reverses the pattern of separation and shows the power of forgiveness. It teaches that healing is possible when people recognize God's hands in their life. Another common subject in Genesis is God's faithfulness to his promises. Despite human failures, God never abandons his covenant. His promises pass from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob and then to future generations. This shows that God's plan is not dependent on human perfection, but on his faithfulness. Genesis also teaches about faith and obedience. Abraham leaves his homeland, trusting God without knowing the destination. Jacob wrestles with God and is changed. Joseph remains faithful even in suffering. These examples show that faith is not a one time act but a lifelong journey. The consequences of sin are clearly seen throughout the book: separation, pain, conflict, and death. Yet, alongside these consequences, we see God's grace, mercy, and provision. God clothes Adam and Eve, protects Cain, saves Noah, calls Abraham, transforms Jacob, and elevates Joseph. This balance between justice and grace is a central message of Genesis. For present day life, Genesis teaches us that separation from God is a root of many problems in our life. When we move away from God, it affects our relationships, decisions, and purpose. Sin still brings division today between people, families, and communities. However, God's desire is always restoration. Any challenges, delays, and sufferings are often part of God's preparation process. Like Joseph, we may not understand our journey, but God is working behind the scenes. Genesis ultimately points forward to God's greater plan of redemption. It shows that while sin brings separation, God initiates restoration. The book ends with hope, reminding us that God's promises continue and His plan is still unfolding. May God bless you all. Amen.